Welcome to Weekly Exchange, where we discuss Forex strategy news and the games we're currently enjoying. I'm Warmacblu, joined today by Nasarog. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. Okay, so a quick update on Endless Legend with their latest Halloween release. It's a mini add-on, and in this release, they touch upon the strategic AI, they touch upon the tactical AI, they introduce a new Broken Lord's hero attached to a quest. They have a bunch of bug fixes for single player and multiplayer. And I think the biggest bit of news right there is the modding support, because they're giving us players mod tools and they're fantastic. You can modify the quests, you can modify research, you can add research, you can modify units, you can modify values, you can just everything becomes modifiable. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the mod community does with this.
Right.
And I'm not a modder myself because it's a little beyond my scope, but I definitely play them when something interesting comes along. But what I did notice, at least for myself, is that in some of my games I'm noticing the AI is playing much better. So I think some of the people that have been holding out or haven't played in a while might want to give it a spin, though I cannot say for certain that because one of their producers, Jeff Spock, just released a video talking about their AI and how it works. And one of the things he mentioned is that their AI actually has personalities. Depending on the faction, it might have a more warlike, a more peace-like, or one that's pursuing research or diplomacy. So really depending on which personality you end up with, it affects how the AI plays. And I've seen some AIs that are being smart with having 8-unit armies with generals, and then I've seen other ones that are still stuck in the old format. So I'm not sure that it has completely switched over to what, like, as in they haven't finished working all the AI, and they don't even really mention that they did that much, but they did. And so that's my update for Endless Legend.
Right. Do you think that, has the company expressed any interest in doing holiday, I would say, updates where they release Halloween-related quest lines, or maybe for Christmas or Hanukkah they'll release holiday-themed quests? And
this one, the one that they just released,
right,
is a Halloween themed. So you're basically exploring a ruin. If you need to have I believe they said you need to have 7 Arrow 1 techs, and then you also, and I know when I found this ruin in my game, but I didn't have any of the luxury resource needed to activate it, but you also have, there's a minimum requirement, and once you activate it, it begins a quest. And the hero, I saw the picture and the graphic for it, and the hero looks really cool with this, like, the death head skull mask, and it's pretty cool. And for Endless Space, another game that they had done in the past, their first game, they had a Christmas theme with the planet, with, like, you know, the North Pole planet, basically. So I'm pretty sure that they'll throw stuff like that in our direction every now and again.
That's really cool. Okay, well, let's move on to Star Ruler 2. Star Ruler 2 received a patch a few days ago, and two very big points of interest are a change to the diplomacy and also ship design. So diplomacy, all they basically hinted at so far is that they're giving more incentive to play diplomacy cards, and they have also added more influence cards. And
that's very interesting. That's good. Diplomacy is very, very important in a Forex game. Too bad more developers don't realize that.
Yeah. The diplomacy in Star Wars 2 is fantastic, and it once you get used to it, it kind of feels a bit shallow, but they're giving more incentive to play your cards. So literally, you're playing cards. So it could be a great fix. And as far as ship design goes, they added in a automatic ship designer. That's how they described it, and they say that you have to press a button in the design editor, and then you receive a randomly generated design. So for people who don't like to design their own ships, the computer will do it for you. But the most interesting part is that the AI will use this system, and they'll design ships over time and use them against you. So that could mean every game you'll be playing against different ships, which I've never experienced that in any other game before.
Oh, well, Galciv kind of had that because
Okay.
they would take the metrics of our play styles and what we favored, and then they would teach the AI how to counter it.
Oh,
But this sounds very different because if the AI just randomly just rolls for a new ship, that could make some very
right.
play.
Yeah, I don't. There was no mention of AI learning against, but yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Okay, sounds
Okay.
exciting.
Next, we have Age of Wonders 3. They released a Halloween dev journal, and it goes over the new class spells, the new Necromancer class spells. Let me see. I don't think there's any worth note. There's a few returning ones. Corpse Explosion is a returning spell from Age of Wonders 2. And an interesting one is Undead Plague. And they mentioned that if you cast it on an enemy city, the population will slowly decrease, while at the same time, population of your nearest city will increase. And they say that this is important because undead cities gain population much slower than quote unquote living cities.
Right.
So this spell is going to be a very strategic part of the Necromancer class.
Let me ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
At least from the regular fantasy tropes, when you're dealing with undead, the undead grow as the living die. So one of the things that they do is they try to spread plagues or commence with early wars on everybody to try and increase their own population. So is that what they mean when they say that you're going to have, as the city next to you starts dying, your population starts increasing?
Right, yeah, except you can control that with a spell.
Nice.
Yeah, and the spell graphic, you can check it out on the Age of Wonders website. The spell graphic looks very nice. It looks like thousands of rats running towards a city. So it looks it looks kind of cool.
Nice. And you know something? I've been noticing a lot more interesting developments with Age of Wonder to the point where I'm sitting back and I'm like, okay, yeah, I need to play this. I need to play it soon. When is the Mac version coming?
It's coming. They're working on it.
Okay. All right. So next, I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret. Europa Universalis 4 is not done being developed. They just released a new mod called Art of War, and it actually goes and works on the basic mechanics of the game, and it improves both naval and army control. So maybe it will no longer be known just as a grand strategy. Maybe it'll actually switch over more into a tactical perspective, but it's kind of hard to tell. And then back to Civ. So we talked about it on the podcast, and I finally got a chance to sit down and play a little bit with it. So I fired up my game. One of my favorite factions is Kamehameha the Polynesians, because they get to just jump on the sea and travel from turn one without any impedance. And I proceeded to declare war and attack everybody and everything within sight from the beginning. My growth did not go well, but I did fight a lot. And I noticed that as time progressed, the AI was not denouncing me every turn and calling me a warmonger. And that's pretty important because that's one of the biggest things that they did. They nerfed warmongering, and they also, another big thing they did is they took out a whole bunch of cheats and exploits from multiplayer. But since I don't play multiplayer, it doesn't really affect me. And then they also went ahead and added 2 luxury resources from the Deluxe New World, the New World scenario, the Deluxe version, and they added Coco and Bison. So that's pretty neat. And I think that's it for Civ 5.
What do I've played a little bit of Civ 5. How would two luxury resources change the game? How would you think they would change the game?
Well, strategic resources
Right.
um, are needed for growing your cities or getting troops or building certain structures.
Okay.
Luxury resources have a tile bonus as well as like an empire happiness. So the more luxury resources you have, the happier your empire is, and as a result of the happiness of your empire, you can grow bigger because there's a penalty if you grow too fast, as in you're going wide. You have problems. Your economy starts to collapse. Everything. It's like everything goes bad for you. But when you have luxury resources, the more you have, you can trade for them. You go to war to get them, or you forward settle to try and grab them instead of the AI. And the more of them you have, the bigger your empire can get, if that's what you want. Of course, there are other players that try to build tall, which is a few cities and huge cities, and it's not as important as when you're going wide, which is a lot of cities but not quite as big.
Right.
So that would be where, I mean, that's what it does.
Okay. All right. And lastly, in terms of news, we have some Sorcerer King news. Currently, you can opt into the beta, and the new beta, if you opt into it, it adds some sovereigns, some heroes. It activates the minor races, and it also allows you to cast terraforming spells, which is one thing that I thought the game was missing, and I'm glad they added it in. It's one thing that I love in Age of Wonders, how you can change the landscape. Is that what they mean by terraforming spells?
Yeah, you can like build a mountain range and cut off access into your city.
So that's even better than Age of Wonders. Age of Wonders, you can change, say, barrens to wasteland, or well, that's pretty much the same. You can change barrens to like tropical, for example.
That's pretty big.
Yeah, it's big when you actually get into a battle, because that could affect the morale. However, there's no real spells where you can block off areas, so that's kind of cool. And I do want to mention that we'll talk about it more either on this show or maybe the other podcast.
The Fortnite podcast, as it's now called.
Yeah, the bi-weekly podcast. Sorcerer King will be talked about more when it goes into official beta, which is supposed to happen in mid-November.
Okay, sounds good. So here's a question for you. What are you playing right now?
Right.
Well, not at this moment, but what game is really getting your time?
Right. Games that I've played this week have been Star Ruler 2 and a game called Expeditions Conquistador. It's actually a fairly old game, and in my opinion, it's very underrated. I'm just going to talk about Expeditions.
Okay, go ahead.
And the game is not a 4X game. It is definitely a strategy game where you command a group of conquistadors, and you're trying to make it to the mainland to explore mainland Spain. It's also a very underutilized theme, I would say. Not a lot of games are set in Spanish exploration time period, for example.
I got one. I can give you one that is.
Yeah.
Sid Meier's Pirates.
Okay, there we go. I haven't played that game.
That's an amazing game. Check it out if you get a chance.
I will. So, Conquistador, you lead a group of conquistadors, and at the beginning of the game, you get to choose between warriors, doctors, scouts, and hunters, and you can make your party however you want. And the overworld map is very much like Mount and Blade. Ever heard of that game?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, it's very much like that, where you ride around on a horse and you can interact with things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And every day you only get a certain amount of moves, and instead of hitting end turn, you have to camp. And then you assign tasks to your party. So the hunters are going to go out and hunt, the warriors are going to guard, the doctors are going to maybe research some inventions where you can research tents, or you can research carts in order to make more movements. It's kind of like a little mini game. And the combat is almost exactly like Age of Wonders, except without spells. So it's when you get into combat, it zooms into a tactical grid, hex-based grid, and there is flanking. It's not fantasy, so there's obviously no spells or any fantasy units, but...
Cannon fire?
Excuse me?
Cannon fire?
Yes, you do get cannons. I do not have a cannon at the moment. But I did watch a Let's Play of someone who played through it, and he got a cannon, and that looks amazing. So I'm looking forward to playing more. I've heard it's a very long game. Some people say 20, some people say 40 hours.
Wow.
The game is not replayable, meaning that every single battle you fight is going to be the same no matter who your party is made up of.
Yeah, so it's not a sandbox game.
Right. However, you can replay the game using a different party. So, like, if you just want to play all warriors and one doctor, you can do that. Or if you just want to play a lot of hunters. So, I don't know. Usually I don't replay too many games. So, we'll see how it goes. What about you? What have you been playing this week?
I am playing my most favorite recent game of the past couple of months, Endless Legend. And I'm doing a playthrough on Warlock 2, The Exiled, because I'm going to be writing it up for the site. And, I can't even say so much that I'm playing as much as struggling with it right now, because it got ported to the Mac. Yay. Right. The first one I played on my gaming machine that I haven't turned on in quite a while, because it sounds like jet planes fighting with one another in a valley. So noise ordinance in my house restricts me from using it. So I'm using my Mac, and I'm incredibly happy that they ported it to the Mac. I really am. But they did not do a very good job with it, because in the tutorial, which is a bad, boring tutorial, like all tutorials have been in recent memory,
right,
they're showing you how to use a mouse on a keyboard that does not have a mouse. So I mean, it's kind of weird when you're on a laptop and you have 18 accessories. Might as well just play on the tower. So I'm kind of trying to figure out, and I'm looking for the hotkey equivalents, and I don't know. It's being a little weird, but what little I am getting to play of it right now, I am enjoying it. I mean, it's pretty much the same as before. Some more units, some different graphics.
Right.
It's not. I don't know. I can't honestly say that it is a sequel. It almost feels like a reboot. Kind of what happened with XCOM Enemy Within, which was basically XCOM Enemy Unknown, but with more classes and more variety and more environments to bounce around and hunt aliens, and a couple more missions. But in reality, that's the game that they should have released in the first place.
Right.
And I think Warlock 2 would have been an amazing game, even more so than Warlock 1 had it been released that way. But they're also doing something weird with the DLC, where like, oh, if you want a few extra voices, you need $5 for this. If you want a couple of that, if you want a couple of more wizards, and it's kind of like, really, you just put out the game and you already have this stuff. Don't you see what people are saying? Can't you hear the anger from games that are not coming complete? But yeah, and then of course they have the Nagas, which is the aquatic race. So once I'm done with this, I'll probably end up grabbing that one and see how the game goes from there.
Right. I saw a Let's Play of someone playing through Wrath of the Naga, right?
Right. Wrath of the Naga. Yeah, singular. Wrath of the Naga. Right.
Yeah, and it looks really nice. I do love how the race really benefits by being in water.
Right. It's one of the few games in recent history that has gotten it right. When they have an aquatic race that actually it's not just, oh, lives on an island, but actually uses water tiles differently and has different units and has bonuses while on water. So I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I think I saw the same one. Or I don't know if it was from them, from one of the other YouTube people, but I'm pretty sure we'll have our own soon enough. So,
Right.
What else? Let me see.
Well, quickly mention a game that you're not playing at the moment, but you want to play.
I'm not playing at the moment, but I want to play.
Yeah, you might not even own it, so a game that you want to buy or something.
Aha. Something that's out, right? Not something that's
Yeah.
Okay. So Pandora First Contact.
Okay.
I would. I don't own it, and I will soon enough. But I have so many things going on that it's just you got to pick and choose.
Right.
And then actually, you know what? I want to play Pandora a lot more than Civ Beyond Earth.
I was just gonna say that game interests me more.
Yeah. Which one? Civ Beyond Earth?
No, Pandora.
Yeah. It's like, first of all, you have the review from Devil Dog, which came out today.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it came out on Friday, so whichever day we end up putting this up, Monday, so it came out 3 days ago.
Right.
And somewhat of a scathing review, but you know what? I have to agree with him. It's like Firaxis dropped the ball. They had an opportunity. I mean, they can't redo Alpha Centauri. That game is done. That game is out. That game is amazing. You don't touch it. But if you're making a spiritual successor, then make one. Take things that worked in Alpha Centauri, that was their game in the first place, and do something with it. And then you have games like Pandora, which are actually a lot more like Alpha Centauri than Civ Beyond Earth, and has a lot of the same feel, and yet it's not Firaxis. It's a different company, and they're doing a better job at it than the company that made the game. So for me, definitely before Beyond Earth, Pandora comes first. First Contact.
Right. So for me, you mentioned You mentioned XCOM.
Right.
And a game that I wanted to play since it came out, and I never bought it, is Xenonauts.
Right.
I really want to play Xenonauts.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew.
It just looks so good. It looks so old school, and it's not... Is it Sprite? I don't think it's Sprite graphics, but usually I don't like realistic-looking games. And this game has kind of a realistic look. I don't know. It just looks like very in-depth.
I think it's a 32-bit sprite game, so it's actually...
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's like a much higher def version of what's being put out now. And that game is a spiritual successor to the original XCOM games.
Right.
Yeah, it's the new XCOM. It was an awesome game. I love it, but it was not. It was very different than the other ones. So, the old ones.
Yeah, I was watching a few Let's Plays, and I just love the combat and how you have to move each character, and you have to look one direction and look another direction. You usually don't think about that, when you're playing a tactical game.
Absolutely. And that is a tactical game. I mean, there's plenty of strategy, yeah, but it's very much a tactical game.
Right. And even the mini game, the mini game where you have to, like the air combat mini game.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's good too. They had that also in the original games.
Right. I looked at it, and it looks like it takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you get used to it, it seems like it's pretty neat.
I think they did a very good job. I mean, for me, sometimes I get caught up on the graphics, so...
It has good graphics.
It's good enough graphics. But then you look at something like XCOM Enemy Within, which is just like a stunningly pretty game. And for me, it plays well. I enjoy it. So Xenonauts takes a bit of a back seat. But then you know what? When you get that flash to the past type of scenario, you're like, hey, what do I want to load up? And then boom, there's Xenonauts waiting.
Right. So. Okay. So I think we'll wrap up here. You have any parting words?
I just want to say thank you to everybody that's following us, and we're going to be working on figuring out a format in the webcast as well.
Right. Yeah, this show we're going to try and make weekly.
Right.
It's going to mainly cover 4X strategy news, and then we'll have a quick discussion about, games we want to play or games that we're playing.
So, question for you as far as the show goes. What if you get some developer that wants to come on your webcast or something like that? Sounds interesting.
It could be, yeah.
It's news. It's news if they want to talk about their brand new thing that nobody's heard about.
That's true. Or they could talk on the podcast.
I see.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
Hey,
okay.
We're working it out. Hey, thank you for having me over.
No problem.
It was a good time. Good time.
Okay, so this has been eXplorminate's Weekly Exchange. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again soon.
Have a good day.